Professor Matebesi, good evening to you. Thank you for your time tonight. Firstly, was there anything that stood out for you in particular about today's NEC update?
Hi, good evening, Katie, and good evening to South Africans. What stood out for me, and predictably so, because many commentators were already discussing that the NEC will definitely once again discuss the issue of the step-aside rule, and particularly relating to Mayor Matebesi. And what stood out for me was almost like a cautious approach that our African National Congress has taken towards this. For me, it's more a case of expression rather than repression. And what do I mean by that? They did not want to take a hasty decision which will once again fuel some of the tension that is already prevalent within the African National Congress.
When one takes a look at the statement, they kick off with the issue of violence, but say very little on it. You know, they talk about great concern about violence within ANC structures and that they've instructed their structures to take disciplinary action against those behind the violence. Now, when we have seen some of the videos that have gone viral, Professor Matebesi, of, you know, people firing indiscriminately at a branch meeting of the ANC in Mpumalanga, you know, we understand that they're hardly able to hold a meeting without violence. Do you expect that the NEC could have or should have even come out stronger on the issue of violence? Again, given the extent to which you have some of those, if I stay with Mpumalanga as the example, that have been petitioning the organization to do a lot more.
Katie, I don't think this is a question that one should in particularly relate to the current NEC sitting that was over the weekend. For me, it's a long overdue stance where the African National Congress could have arrested this decay that is happening within the organization. It is unacceptable where you find that it seems as if the means to contest positions within the ANC also has to do with intimidation, also has to do with violence. And I don't think that any committee that will be set up, because the environment has become so conducive, so tolerable, that it has become entrenched, it is normalized, and it's almost like business as usual for ANC members to behave the way they behave, because we have seen on numerous occasions, it seems as if there's absolutely no consequences for the actions that ANC members are taking. And this is as the Treasurer General have stated during the briefing, that the African National Congress cannot tolerate ill discipline. And the question is, why has the ANC not dealt with this matter a long time ago?
The roadmap that has been set out following this weekend again seems to really point us to preparations for the ANC's upcoming conference in December. When you think about the processes that provinces will now have to undergo, some of which still have to conduct their own provincial conferences, how tumultuous are you expecting this journey to be?
Well, it's going to be a very slippery roadmap for many. And what makes it even more difficult is that you still have two leagues, the Women's League and the Youth League, that still needs to go to conference. And I think both conferences, if they go according to plan, will be held in June. And that in itself tells you that a lot still needs to be done. But let's look at the ANC is an organization with a national footprint, and they do have the organizational capacity. But I think it found one thing when it comes to act against members who try to circumvent some of the internal processes and structures of the African National Congress. And I think all these things will come to the fore and erode, once again, confidence within this glorious organization.
Of course, you also have provinces that have to go to conference, but there's the issue of the leagues. You know, this afternoon you spoke about the announcement of Dr. Gwen Ramokgopa being deployed to the Secretary General's office. But there are broader issues around the state of the leagues and the extent to which they're going to be fully functioning entities going into the December conference, and how credible rather their credentials for that conference are going to be.
Yes, and that's why I'm lamenting the point. One can only hope that the African National Congress will be able to navigate its way around some of all these tricky issues. First of all, we have seen on numerous occasions, and this for me is actually the indication that the African National Congress no longer has the will to deal with its own internal problems. It's unacceptable. We have seen what has been happening in South Africa in the past, the so-called Operation Dudula and all that. In the past, you would have had the African National Women's League or even the ANC Youth League taking a stance on some of these national issues that erupt from time or emerge from time to time. And yet the leaders of the ANC have seen it necessary to allow this chaotic situation to continue as it is. As for the Women's League, one can also ask, why did the ANC or the League in itself allow a situation where the leaders have to overstay their welcome? I mean, that for me it also has to do with planning within the Women's League. And at the end of the day, once again, it tells you, it gives you a glimpse of a window within what, unless if there were any other challenges that some of us are not privy to, that perhaps explain why there is a delay in electing the next leadership of the Women's League and even for the African National Congress Youth League.